The great Dick Miller is probably one of my favorite guys that just shows up in everything. And as a little kid, I remember there's that scene where he's an alcoholic, and to get him to sort of switch over, they show a bunch of these like beautiful women topless, all pouring him rums and whiskeys. And they're just like, Uncle Willie, Uncle Willie. How do you say no to that?
Oh my goodness. Oh my God.
What's your favorite scary movie?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end.
This is my boomstick.
Swallow this.
Once again, guys, thank you for joining us on the Arrow in the Head show. I am Lance, joined by my host, the Arrow himself, Mr. John Fallon. John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm very good, very good. Hello, everybody. Well, let's start with the important question. What's your poison today?
I gotta be honest, it's a little bit before payday, so I actually just have Johnny Walker and a little bit of soda, a little bit of
Soda.
Joe Pop, but ginger ale. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. I got a little baby Jameson right here, and then I'm gonna move on to a little Maker's Mark. Does the body good. And I will end off with a little baby J&B.
You got like a journey ahead of you, man. Come on. I
know.
got
Well,
one drink.
we're talking about some fun stuff today, so I got to get ready. By the way, just before we jump in, much respect on that shirt unbuttoned with the shag going.
The lion's mane, my friend. Yeah. I don't button shirts up. I belong in tropical weather with rum. Yeah.
I heard nothing but bad things about him.
I look like a fool here in Chicago, but don't worry. I'm
pirate.
South. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cigars.
much love, bro. Much love. So what's the deal today, bro? Cheers. And cheers, everybody.
Hello, my friend! Hey!
Well, I think
I'm already done.
action horror, if I'm correct.
Oh, one of my favorite subgenres. I want to try to pick some movies that, like I said before, Aliens is such, it's like a masterpiece of action horror. I'm going to start with The Guest, directed by Adam Wingard, who actually wound up directing. He went, big studio with Godzilla versus King Kong, or King Kong versus Godzilla, or whatever. He had also done You're Next.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
Because The Guest is a hybrid of three of my favorite subgenres. First of all, it stars Dan Stevens at his most entrancing, if you will. It's part 90s, like person that pretends to be good but is bad thriller. So like Hand That Rocks a Cradle, or
There we go.
Why is that the only one that comes to mind? The Hand That Rocks a Cradle.
It's amazing.
There's a zillion of those.
Yeah.
There's a zillion of those, but you know what I mean. The Hand That Rocks a Cradle meets a canon 80s action film meets a horror film all in one. So it starts like a 90s thriller. Then the second act goes a canon action film. And then the third act goes horror. And somehow Wingard, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, manages to make it gel as a whole. And the chick is the chick from, what's her name? That blonde girl.
I'll be honest. I've never seen The Guest, so I know.
Oh, you're an asshole. First of all, oh yeah, Micah Monroe. She plays the kind of like the final girl, if you will. She's fantastic. There's also Leland Orser, who's always a great character actor. And the movie's just engaging from beginning to end. It's really stylized. The soundtrack is fantastic, from the score to just the pop rock tunes that it's just, dude, straight up. You haven't seen The Guest? Tell your wife that, no sex this weekend. You're watching The fucking Guest with a tub of popcorn, and you're going to have a fucking blast.
Yeah, well, it's. I know it's written by Simon Barrett.
Yeah, they're a combo. They were a team. Yeah.
And
He
wrote You're Next as well, which I think brought back Barbara Crampton. Yeah, great movie. And he did the new Seance, which I really liked as well. So.
He directed that one, Simon.
Yeah. Okay, The Guest. Well, you're not the first person. It's been all over the internet. It's one of the few ones I've actually missed. So, all right. Well,
so what about you? One of your favorite horror actions?
One of my favorites when I was a little bit younger. I've owned it. I've rewatched it. It's not as obscure as The Guest, but I do feel A younger generation probably hasn't seen it as much, if not at all. Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Oh, great movie, man. Fun shit.
Probably Billy Zane's best role. I know that's going to be a stir.
Dead Calm.
Dead Calm's great. I mean, I love myself some Sam Neill. Come on, I'm a New Zealand guy, but he just fucking had a blast with this. He let it all out. There's a scene
He chewed it. Yeah.
when he throws his cowboy hat down and just flips out because he can't get in the house.
Fuck this cowboy shit. You fucking ho dunk, po dunk, well then there, motherfuckers!
I'll say this. I absolutely love William Sadler. Probably one of my favorite actors. What just a great role. The directing wise, it looks cool. I like the idea that essentially the demons are tricking all these people, letting them in the house closer and closer so they can get the relic with Christ's blood. Speaking of it, I think I like how they showed the flashbacks where it's in World War I, the trenches, I believe, up to Christ when like the demons surrounding him. It has that cool sunset background. It's very stylized. It's not very realistic, but I just think it's a really interesting approach.
Ernest Dickinson directed that. Who directed Juice with Tupac? He directed Bones with Snoop. Great, very, very stylized director. Really great eye.
80s vibe to it, even though it's mid 90s.
Yeah.
The great Dick Miller is probably one of my favorite guys that just shows up in everything. And as a little kid, I remember there's that scene where he's an alcoholic, and to get him to sort of switch over, they show a bunch of these like beautiful women topless, all pouring him rums and whiskeys. And they're just like, Uncle Willie, Uncle Willie. How do you say no to that?
Oh my goodness! Oh my God!
Yeah, well, there's not much I can add. I actually saw that on big screen, Demon Knight.
Ah, you're lucky, man. I didn't get you on
and
that.
I've always loved it. I saw it on a big screen. And then it came out on VHS, and I got the VHS, and then it came out on DVD, I got the DVD, and then it came out on Blu-ray, and I got the Blu-ray. So it's a great party movie. It's a great movie to watch, a bunch of friends, and you're getting fucked up, and just having a good time with a movie. It's just fun cheese. I got nothing. Another one of my favorite horror action movies, which I'm sure some people are gonna say, no, it's not horror. But it really has, it literally actually combines my two favorite subgenres, which is one-man army, shoot 'em up, and slashers. I love slasher movies. And that is George P. Cosmatos, even though Stallone truly directed it. You want to get into that? You hear about it?
No, I don't know about this because I feel like just as an editor's note, I should be real clear. I saw Cobra probably in my early 20s. So I didn't grow up with it. And I want to say I saw it because I saw a review on Arrow in the Head back in 2005.
That was me.
Yeah, I was going to say probably you, huh?
Yeah, it was me. Yeah. Back then, I was the site. I didn't have employees yet or nothing, yeah. It's come out in the media over the years that George P. Cosmatos, he directed some stuff, but Stallone was in charge. So it started off with Rambo 2. So when Stallone's on set, he's in charge. The shot list, Stallone. Then it went to Cobra, same thing. Stallone directed it. And then it all actually really came out when Kurt Russell did an interview with, I think it was Vanity Fair, but don't quote me on it, where he wanted to direct Tombstone, but he didn't want his name on it. So he was friends with Stallone because of their work together on Tango and Cash. So he asked Stallone, I need a director that's just going to be like a face director, but I'm going to, pull most of the moves. So Stallone said, dude, George P. Cosmatos. I did it with him on Rambo 2 and Cobra. Word on the street, and by Kurt Russell's own admission, and he actually told Cosmatos, I'll only tell the people after you've passed. But as a huge Stallone fan, it shows. It shows his eye. Stallone has a particular style, and you watch Rambo 2, you see it. You watch Cobra, you see it. You even watch Rambo Last Blood, and you know that he had a lot to say on it. Stallone was initially cast as Alex Foley in Beverly Hills Cop. And then he took it upon himself to rewrite the script, remove the humor, jack up the violence and brutality, change the name to Cobretti, Marion Cobretti, which Marion, by the way, was John Wayne's real name, Marion. So it's an homage to John Wayne, the most macho of macho. And Paramount said, nah, I don't want to go that way. And Stallone basically took his Beverly Hills Cop ideas and turned them into Cobra. I could do a whole show about Cobra. What I love about Cobra is that it's the tightest fucking movie you've ever seen in your life. There's no fat on that movie. And it's actually works against it to some degree because the original cut of the movie was like over 2 hours long. And it was so violent that it was going to get an X rating, which was at the time a rating only reserved for films where cocks are sucked on screen. They slimmed down the violence, and then Top Gun hit it big, and they got scared that they were going to get eaten by Top Gun upon the release in '86. So I said, you know what, let's bring it down to a shortest runtime we can so that we get more screenings a day and make more money. They weren't secure about it. So they brought down a movie that was over 2 hours to 87 minutes. So that results in Cobra being really just a string of action scenes and dialogue scenes by a vague plot line about, you know, cop protect chick from crazy cult leaders. It's the most 80s macho, no bullshit movie you'll ever see. Stallone shows up with the fucking thing, the matchstick, the glasses, the card, jeans so tight that you can fit my hand in them. You know, the boots, the gun with the Cobra on it.
He's cutting this California pizza with the scissors.
Yeah. He has his gloves. He cuts the pizza. He cleans the gun. Watching like Christmas fucking commercials on the thing. It's a movie for me. I saw it 3 times in the cinema when I was a child, young teenager. Everything about it greases me right. I know there's nostalgia involved, but the soundtrack, the score, Brigitte Nielsen doing her fucking posing with the long legs, Angel of the City. The one-liners, you know, this is where the law stops and I start, sucker, you know, or go ahead, I don't shop here, you know, which was a play on Dirty Harry's Go Ahead, Make My Day, which was a huge inspiration for Cobra because really Cobra is Dirty Harry taken even further. I could go on and on, so I'll shut the fuck up. So what do you think?
Well, hold on, I got 2 questions. Well, I love it because I love Stallone. But I got 2 questions though, because there's a few things I just learned. So wait a second, has there ever been a released director's cut, or is this something lost to time?
No, I think the footage is lost. Scream Factory recently put out a collectibles edition, but there was no new footage, no new nothing. There was a work print at some point, the 2 hour plus work print floating around, not before the internet. The internet was alive, but in conventions and shit like that. And I've been trying to find it ever since I started pretty much Arrow in the Head. And that was like, what, 20 years ago or some shit? So I haven't gotten my hands on it. I found actually a bunch of deleted scenes from the movie. I found about 20 minutes of deleting scenes just because I'm a geek when it comes to Cobra and I go look for shit. But I'm hoping that Stallone, who just put out a director's cut or a Rocky IV, you know, he'll use his muscle, well, actually, pun intended, to go and find that fucking footage and give us a Cobra we're supposed to get. But even as is, Cobra is just fucking awesome. That's it. I'm done.
He likes Cobra too, because wasn't there word of a TV show or sequel a little while back? Yeah. It sucks because I was going to say that I saw it a lot later, but I grew up with Stallone. You know, Demolition Man, of course, the Rockies, Rambos. There's that one, the Snow Cliffhanger. You know, so when I saw this, I was actually surprised because I didn't realize it was going to be as much horror as it was. I remember reading the review, but I actually think I know people will fight us, but it's not horror. I actually thought it was going to be an action movie. I was surprised that there was a serial killer cultish element.
The whole scene in the hospital could have been right out of Halloween.
Yeah. I liked it because it just is something that you didn't see a lot. Like you said, action and horror mixed together. Especially, I would say, like a slasher action is almost rare at this point.
In 1985, I think, Stallone hit the peak both with Rambo 2 and Rocky 4 came out the same year and killed it box office wise. So Cobra was his attempt to create another iconic action, hero to continue. And, for me, it blows we didn't get sequels. And, they say the movie underperformed and didn't do as well as Rambo 2, but still did pretty fucking good. It was the highest grossing movie for both Canon and Warner Brothers for a while, actually. Talking about horror action. You ever see the movie Black Rose with Alexander Nevsky and Kristana Loken, who played the evil Terminator in Terminator 3?
I have not. I've heard of it. I know of Nevsky because he's a big Russian action star that's in some crossover stuff.
Well, he's kind of like the Russian Schwarzenegger, really. That's the way that he's being dubbed. He's a huge guy. He was a big bodybuilding guy. He won Mr. Universe in bodybuilding. So
no shit. Okay.
Like Arnold.
Yeah.
Like Arnold.
I like the Russians, so yeah.
And he did his first film, which was, I guess, a Russian-American co-production called Moscow Heat, where he had like big American stars with himself. And then eventually he came to United States and tried to, put his stamp of him as an action star. So he has a movie called Black Rose. It's on Netflix right now. It's kicking serious ass. Like I said, Kristana Loken's in it.
Yeah, Terminator 3.
The great Adrian Paul is in it, Highlander, and Robert Davi.
One of the most underrated Bond films ever made, License to Kill.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's basically a cock tease for Casino Royale, really.
Yeah.
With a 90s gloss, because it's very Lethal Weapon-ish. I think they actually had the same composer as Lethal Weapon. I forgot who it was. Do the music for License to Kill. It's definitely the more hard edge Bond movie before
the meanest Bond movie before Craig. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But he's in this Black Rose. That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm pretty sure if I pick up my phone right now, I could get him on the line.
Wait, you got the guy's
talk
number?
About Black Rose and talk about, in the name of full disclosure. I just acted in one of his films called Assault on Rio Bravo, a action Western. So we're good friends. So let me try to ring him up. Mr. Nevsky, how you doing, Alex?
It's great to be on the show, John. Hi, how are you doing?
Very good, very good. Alex, Lance Velchek, our host.
Nice to meet you, my friend.
Nice to meet you.
So, we gave you a ring because we're doing an episode about horror action films. So, of course, you did one horror action film, which is Black Rose. So we highlighted it and I wanted to ask you about the movie personally. I mean, you directed it, produced it, starred in it. How'd the shoot go?
First of all, let me tell you that you guys are doing an amazing job. And as you know, and we spoke about that a lot, I moved from Russia, from Moscow. I moved to California from Moscow. But even in Russia, I mean, there's so many fans of horror genre, action horror genre. And I remember they always read Job Law and Arrow in the Head, and put that information on some Russian sites and everything. So, I mean, thank you. Thank you for promoting that genre. And thank you for supporting independent filmmakers. John, thank you. Thanks to Lance and thanks to all your team.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And talking about Black Rose, I mean, that was an amazing experience because that was my directorial debut. And I've made a lot of movies before that, but I was on a different side of the camera, right? And I worked with great directors. Actually, in Russia, I didn't make much movies in Russia, but I made one with my favorite director, Eldar Rязанов, who was like #1 director in whole Soviet Union for decades, and I loved his movies. And he was the one who I made movie with before I went to California. And then, of course, in Hollywood, I worked with Walter Hill. I worked with Sofia Coppola. I worked with Mark Dacascos, who, I mean, he's an icon action star. I worked with Andrzej Bartkowiak and everything. Actually, I worked with Bartkowiak after Black Rose. But my point is, I knew very well that, to make a picture well, you have to have a captain. You have to have a great director. And I think for Black Rose, I was ready. I was ready to do it, but I was sneaky, as always. And I had 2 executive producers always with me. And one of them was Sheldon Lettich, who made a lot of iconic action movies, Jean-Claude Van Damme, right?
Yeah.
And he wrote Rambo 3.
Yeah.
Yes, and Double Impact and all these movies. And on the other side, I had Brian Gors, who directed a lot of like straight to DVD sequels for Sony and for studios, you know. So I was well prepared. You know, it was hard, but huge fun because I worked with a team of people who I liked, and we shot, I think, for like 3.5 weeks. We shot in Russia, and we cheated a lot because Black Rose, as you remember, I mean, it took place in Moscow and in the United States.
Yeah.
And basically, like, you know, like 20% is in Moscow and 80% is in the United States. But we shot it the completely other way around. So we shot 80% of that in Moscow and 20% of that into the United States. And I think I was able to do it because I got great team of people, you know. And for example, my DP was Rudy Harbon, who did 3,000 miles to Graceland. Nice. With Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner, yeah. And Rudy actually did a very good job with Black Rose, because if you remember 3,000 miles to Graceland, Las Vegas, kind of like a hero of the film itself, you know. So he did the same thing with Moscow and Los Angeles, especially in Black Rose, because Los Angeles is kind of like an anti-hero in the city, anti-hero in Black Rose. So I was, you know, I was really happy to have all that experience. And of course, you know, when I was thinking about the genre, I tried to combine two of my favorite genres. So it was action and it was horror. And that's why all this killing, because the movie is about search for the serial killer.
Yeah.
So all that serial killing, I mean, it was unbelievable to shoot, because it was an homage, my homage to Seven. To films like that, you know. And actually it was funny because actually action was also an homage to all the 80s movies and everything. And I remember when movie was, because first we opened it in Russia. We shot it in English, but dubbed it completely into Russian and opened it in Russia. And we have a big premiere in Moscow and in St. Petersburg after that. And of course, right before we had screenings for the press and the junkets for the press. And I remember one just stood up at one of the press conferences, and you know how they look, these guys who hate action movies. I mean, they all look like shit. I mean, they never train. I mean, they just, you know them.
Yeah.
And he stood up and he said, Alexander, he said, I mean, Alexander, just be honest with us. Because that moment when, you know, your character is out of the Hammer with a boot, cowboy boot, I mean, you stole it, Alexander. You just stole it from Sylvester Stallone, from Cobra. You stole it. Tell this to us. And I said, you know what? I told him, you know what? You got me. You got me, but you just hurted me badly for no reason. Because in reality, yes, Stallone had it in Cobra in 1986. Yeah. Right? But Arnold Schwarzenegger stole it for The Last Action Hero for 1993. And Steven Seagal stole it from Arnold Schwarzenegger for his On Deadly Ground, because remember, he is jumping out of a helicopter with a boot in 1996. So I told him, you hurted me, but for no reason, because I stole it not from Stallone. I stole it from Steven Seagal, who stole it from Arnold, who stole it from Stallone. You know? So exactly. So that was my homage to that kind of movies. And of course, it was a huge headache to make it happen, all of it. But in the end of the day, it was theatrical hit in Russia. We sold it to about 30 countries. Here, we made a deal with Netflix, 3 years exclusive deal on Netflix for North America. So there was a happy ending for me, and actually for my character in the movie too. Yeah.
Well, I want to say two things. First of all, where can people watch the film right now? I know it was on Netflix, but I think the 3-year expired.
Right now, yes, we had 3 years deal with Netflix exclusively, and it ended in 2020. Mm-hmm. You know, in the magic year of 2020.
Oh yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So now it's on Amazon Prime Video, on all the other platforms, but I think Prime Video is the best way for people to North America to watch it.
Okay. And I just wanted to commend you in terms of that particular picture, which I saw a long time when we first met, actually. What I always liked about it is exactly that. You really managed as a director to capture the feel and the vibe of those 80s, 90s action films. But when you went and tackled the horror in terms of cinematography, the shot compositions, whatnot, you really felt like this is like Seven, like really dark and dirty and grimy horror film. And you somehow managed to take those two aesthetics and make them work. So kudos, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John. I'm glad you like it.
Looking at the, obviously like who you got in this flick, right? You got Robert Davi. I mean, one of my favorite Bond villains, Die Hard, of course.
Yes.
The Highlander. You got Adrian Paul. What was, of course, I Come in Peace, you got Matthias Hughes. What was it like getting those people? And I think actually John was telling me about, there's some sort of story with you and Matthias in the film, if you don't mind jumping into that as well. But how did you get this cast, first of all?
Actually, the first one who was signed was Kristana Loken from Terminator 3, if you remember, Chris, and Blood Rain, right? And of course, I'll tell you about Matthias. And there's always the stories about me and Matthias because we made 4 movies together, and he's an amazing guy, an amazing action hero. But talking about Kristana, because I think what I will tell you can be really useful for independent filmmakers who are watching us now, because, everyone has a dream to make a movie, right? And that's great. But I think the most important thing is, if you want to make a movie, you should structure it the way so you can continue to make movies, if you understand what I'm saying. So you should watch that as a puzzle. Yes, make a movie, promote the movie, sell the movie, and start another movie. That's how I always look at that from the beginning, from my first film, which I produced in 2003, Moscow here. So, talking about Kristana, when I was getting ready for Black Rose, I started to think right away if it's my directorial debut, right? And they know me in Russia as a Russian Schwarzenegger because I was a bodybuilding star long before I started to make movies when I was a kid over there. So I thought I should think about right way to sell it to the audience, not just to the Russian or ex-USSR audience or Eastern Europe, to a worldwide audience. And if you check the poster, actually, it's right here. It's right here. See, it's right here on the wall, right? So Kristana, actually, she looked exactly like Terminatrix in Terminator 3. Yeah. And I looked exactly like a kind of like a modern, kind of Russian handsome version of a Terminator, So that's how we had it on a poster. And I had that poster in mind right away, even before we start to make a movie. And you, John, know that, because we spoke about that many times, that so many people have stereotypes about how Hollywood work, right? Yeah. So many talented people cannot really make it because really they didn't even try. They think they're trying, but they didn't. Yeah. And there's so many obstacles. So I think for independent filmmakers who are watching us now, that's my advice. And of course, I will continue with Black Rose. Just think outside of the box. Think about not just one movie you're making, not that labor of love you're doing. Think about whole puzzle. And if you think like that, and exactly, you will start with stars, of course. And Lance, I'm glad you like Robert Davi. Yes, Robert is a great guy. And yes, it's a straight connection to Die Hard, to iconic, to Predator 2. I mean, to all the iconic action movies he made. Kristana, it was straight connection to Terminator. Adrian Paul, still huge, even now, 20 years after Highlander TV show. The show is still all over the world. Oh, yeah. And he was amazing. He was amazing in that show. And of course, for those people who didn't see Black Rose yet, we will not spoil the movie. But Adrian, actually, he was a little bit different in Black Rose if you compare it to other films or TV shows he made before. Yeah. And Matthias Hughes and all that amazing martial arts pictures which he was in 90s, end of 80s and 90s. I watched them all on pirated video in Russia. They never released these movies on TV or in theaters, but they released them on pirated video. So I watched them, and that's funny because when pirates released these videotapes in Russia, they put 2 movies on one tape. And it was like, first movie was big movie like Terminator. Second one was, for example, those movies where Matthias is playing Terminator. What was it?
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's one of his early ones. Yeah. Omega Man.
Digital Man. I think Digital Man.
That's
Digital Man. Yeah. So it was like, and for me, these movies, they were the same. And Matthias looked amazing. It was the same when, for example, it was like Van Damme movie and Black Belt. with Don Dragon Wilson and Matthias Youth. So me personally, I consider Matthias movie star long before I met him first time. And I met him first time, I think it was 1998 at Arnold Classic Bodybuilding Championship, because they also had like an expo in between competitions. So there's like actors, some bodybuilding stars and everything. And I was there. I was a guest from Russia. And I was like 26 years old. And I was so happy to meet him, you know, and we took pictures and spoke. And of course, I was very big at the time, you know. Right now, I'm about like 270 probably. And in 1998, when I met Matthias first time, I was about 330 pounds, you know, of muscles. Yes.
Only 270, you know?
Yes, and that was funny because when we met in 2000s, and actually Black Rose was our very first movie, but we knew each other. Before Black Rose. I invited Matthias to Russia a couple of times to do free seminars for kids because I was still promoting fitness. I was going back and forth, you know, before the freaking pandemic. I was going back and forth. I mean, I would spend a couple of months here. In LA, I would spend like another month or couple of weeks in Russia. I was going back and forth. So I remember we started Black Rose in 2013, summer of 2015. But I've met with Matthias, I think, in the end of 2012, and he wasn't happy at the time because he had a new manager who told him to cut his hair, to get skinny instead of get bigger, get skinny. Who told him to basically to start to look like a real actor. And when Matthias told me that, I said, Matthias, can you please introduce me to your new manager? And I will punch him in the face right in front of you, because what he's saying to you, it's complete bullshit. I mean, it's, you should be bigger. Your hair should be longer. That's how Matthias said, yeah, Alexander, I don't know. I just don't know. And he, again, short hair, some glasses. He was skinny. So I thought, I mean, I should bring him in a movie. And I always wanted to make a movie with him. But here's the problem. When he showed up on the set, 6 months later, on the set of Black Rose, and me, I was in a good shape. But in a movie, I'm playing Russian police captain. So he's always in suits or uniform. And I knew that. And plus, I had so many headaches during the pre-production. And of course, so Matthias showed up. So now his hair was longer. And he was huge. He was just huge. And let me tell you, as a bodybuilder, you will never like it. When you have someone as a bodybuilder, you will never like it. When you have someone close to you who is bigger, I mean, you will hate it.
He took your advice, though. He took your advice. He got bigger. He got longer hair.
He did. But now you can imagine my situation. He did, and he showed up in Moscow. Yeah, but you know me, I'm always fair with my friends, you know, and I was so happy for him. I said, Matthias, you look amazing. I mean, just amazing. But I have some, you know, director's ideas about your characters now. So you have to have like a huge mask.
Yeah, you have a
exactly.
Mask, right? Yeah.
Yes, and I told him you have to have that cord, like a huge cord. So we cannot. So I mean, who will try to impress? I mean, everyone knows you have muscles. We should hide them. Yeah, and that's what we did. But because it's never easy. That exact morning when we're supposed to start shooting of his scene, and he had like a big action scene in the movie, I had to attend a product placement meeting with people who flew to Moscow like for a couple of hours. And you know, as an independent filmmaker, you always should be careful with the money. So if someone wants to put money into the movie, of course you should, I mean, be flexible and just run. Yes. So Brian Gorge was directing that sequence. He started that sequence, and I went to the meeting. And 3 hours later, when I was back to the set, there was Matthias in a bank, because he was kind of like robbing the bank and all of that. And he was with his muscles and no mask, all his biceps. I said, what is that? I said, and Matthias told me, Alexander, so you weren't here. And I'm sure you would support me, because my artistic view was that as soon as my character is in the bank, he just lose the mask. He just lose the quad. And now he's just like bigger than life and everything. And I'm sure, Alexander, you would support that idea. I said, Matthias, of course I will. because I also knew we cannot reshoot it, right? We cannot because they already shut out for the day.
That's smart,
Yeah,
smart,
and we have stories like that on every movie. But let me tell you, with all the proudness or whatever correct word in English, that on Showdown in Manila, I was bigger, and I was bigger. But he was trying to do push-ups all the time, all the time.
Up.
So he exactly. So he looked more cut and all of that. But I was bigger. That's for sure. But if we talk seriously, Matthias is a great guy. He's a great friend, and I think in the film which we just finished, Assault on Rio Bravo, I mean, he did an amazing job, and he's playing like a lead bad guy, and he looked so cool because Assault on Rio Bravo, we'll talk about that, but it's like real homage to Sergio Leone westerns, you know, and in some way to action movies too. And Joe Cornette, director and producer, and my co-star did an amazing job. But Matthias, with his look, he did fit so well into Assault on Rio Bravo. I mean, I just watched it like on a big screen because now we're doing a post-production. Means he looked good. But of course he showed his muscles again. Of course he did. In a Western, can you imagine? I mean.
So you have Assault on Rio Bravo now in post-production. I know you have a horror movie actually coming up as well. Where's that at right now? It's called Night of the Caregiver, right?
Yes. It's in editing. It's in the editing, and my very good friend and a very good editor, Cody Miller, is doing editing right now. And I think director's cut of the picture will be ready, hopefully, like in a week.
Nice.
Yes, and it was very interesting experience. And I didn't act in a movie. I just produced this movie. But I think this one also, we can talk about that as homage to those horror films, which I really loved, and those pirated videos, which I was getting in Russia in the 80s. Because, for example, The Exorcist, right? Or Argento's movies, or even Roman Polanski's movies, his early movies like Rosemary's Baby and all of that. For me, of course, I like original The Thing, right? And I like Kurt Russell. And actually, that was an action horror, not just a horror.
No,
action horror. Yes, and I love these films. But I also like films which are kind of like thrillers. Not just like Halloween movies with a huge guy running after you with a knife, but thrillers when you have that, you know, atmosphere. I mean, you don't know when and what will hit you, you know, kind of that kind of thing. So Night of the Caregiver is exactly that. So, and we even have another straight connection to The Exorcist because we have Eileen Dietz in the movie, and she played Demon Pazuzu in William Friedkin's film. Yes. And it was very interesting experience, and that's a very cool and dark story. And Joe Cornette, my friend Joe Cornette, directed it, and that's funny because he's a huge fan of Sergio Leone and westerns, but also he's a huge fan of Friedkin and Argento. So we have, I mean, it's just it's amazing when you meet the person who has the same taste in movies as you are, you know, and that's how he made Night of the Caregiver. So film is in the editing right now, and hopefully as soon as we're done completely and we have a final mix of Assault on Rio Bravo, same team will start to do post-production on Night of the Caregiver.
All right. Okay, so that's post-production. You got anything else?
But good thing is, soon I'll give you guys the trailer, and all the audience of Job Law exclusively will watch the trailer for my first horror film.
I can't wait to see it.
I have a question to you, actually, to both of you. What do you think? Should I show the monster a little bit in the trailer or not?
No.
And if you do, it's a almost like a subliminal frame.
Yeah.
Like a quick flash. Look at all the James Wan trailers, you know? Like, remember the, and this we're going to cut out, by the way, of the interview, but for your benefit. Remember Insidious? Look at the Insidious trailer, and there's the, I forgot the guy's name, in the forefront, and the monster comes in the background, and you just see the eyes. And that moment, you're like, oh, fuck. You don't see the entire monster. Then when you watch the movie, then you see the entire monster. But just that moment, you should check that moment out. It's something to rip.
I don't think you should cut it out of the show, John, because I think that's why they all watching, guys watching you, and because other independent filmmakers, they have so many questions and they don't have money to hire like producer representatives or consultants. A lot of people don't. So I think thank you for advice. And I think that advice can be useful for others who making all these movies. Thank you. Thank you again for the great show. Thank you again for the great job log, great era and ahead. And thank you for all your support, guys, and all your support to independent filmmakers. John, Lance, thank you very much to both of you.
In Russia, like, what was the stuff that hit you hard? Like, in terms of horror and thrillers and that kind of like creepy genre stuff, like what was the stuff that influenced you? Because obviously Black Rose has horror in it. And you're producing a new horror movie. So like, to me, it's like, I'm always curious, what did you grow up on? You know, what is something that like always scared you? That's
an interesting question, because of course, I mean, when I was a kid, of course, we never had that pirated video, and that was before the freaking pirated videos, and it was still Soviet Union. And in Soviet Union, they didn't release, we had a huge movie industry in Soviet Union. It was kind of like our own movie industry, and like War and Peace, all these huge movies and all of that. Kind of like Bollywood. We had our own film industry, but it didn't include like action genre, maybe a little bit. If we talk about kind of like a real action, a little bit, but no horror at all. They made one movie though. They did. And actually they made it, I think, even in the beginning of 70s or end of 80s. And it's called V as victory, I-Y, V, 3 letters, V. And it was based on a book of Nikolai Gogol, who is a very famous classic Russian writer from 19th century. And it was freaking scary. And that was about some monster in the woods, and some people trying to figure out what is it. And they shot it very well. And even monster and some other. So basically V is a main monster, and there's a lot of others like Beaches and all of that who works for him. So makeup was so scary in these movies. And maybe because I was a kid, you know, that's what scared me. And actually books of Gogol, some other books, that was scary. Okay. And I think that was actually a great thing about my generation. I mean, obviously you guys probably a little bit younger, but we read a lot. Yeah. We like to read, you know, and that's different from just watching. Plus, of course, you were lucky once you can go to the theater and watch all these movies in theaters. We couldn't. But later, I think when we started with Perestroika, I think it was kind of like end of 80s, and that's when they started to sell. I mean, on every corner that videotapes. And of course, when I got my first, VCR or whatever that name of that thing in English, right? Like a simple one, whatever. I started to spend all my money on the tapes, and I had hundreds of tapes, you know. And for Pirates credits, it was a good quality. It was a good quality. Work, yes, exactly. So we just enjoyed it. So horror films which I watched.
Well, you guys are doing good. You know, the Russians. I mean, let's be honest. Sputnik is probably one of the best films in the last 10 years, and that came right out of Russia.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, you guys are rocking out, man.
Yes, it is. But the guy who shot it, he's probably like 15 years younger than me, and he was able to. I mean, he didn't read Gogol probably. When he was a kid, he was already watching those pirated movies, and later, exactly, Hollywood studios suddenly came and started to release it in theaters too. So one of the Aliens he probably watched already in the theater. And yes, it's a great homage to Aliens, Sputnik. That's a great film. I completely agree. And you see that obviously the guy who made it is a huge fan of the same movies we're talking about, right? And for me, actually, if we talk about action horror, right, what John mentioned before, that's what I really like, because Predator original Predator. That's a freaking horror.
Yes.
That's a horror. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger biceps over there, but that's a freaking horror, right? And of course, an Aliens, James Cameron Aliens.
Yeah.
That's an action horror. I mean, it's an action. There's like action stars, and doing all that crap and whatever. So that's what I really liked, And yes, I do. If you give me a couple of extra hours, I will watch Friedkin again. Yes, I will. But if I really have a choice, I will watch Predator.
Yeah,
Predator, not The Exorcist.
McTiern's an amazing director. Let's be honest.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah, Predator is a movie that you just keep on watching and watching. It never gets old. It just never gets old. I'm actually going to probably watch it this weekend. Why not?
Between me and you, I don't understand because we're all filmmakers. John, you made a great movie. Lance obviously understand a lot of things about the film business, and I made a lot of movies. But at the studios, they have freaking hundreds of people who made movies before getting big money for development. Whatever. Predators, Rodriguez's Predators, was kind of close to what McTiernan did before. But who the hell approved Adrian Brody as an action hero? Remember, he's a great guy. I like the guy, and he's a great actor. But playing Arnold Schwarzenegger part in that, and that was the studio who was ready. 20th century, and now it's 20th century. At the time, it was 20th Century Fox, right? They could have spent, a lot of money. They could have get new guy, and pushed new guy because Arnold was relatively new when he made Predator, right? Yeah. He wasn't that superstar yet. Yes, he was like in Terminator and Commando, but not superstar at the moment. So that's what I don't understand. And that's why I also think that us, independent filmmakers, we always have a shot. We just have to understand how to do it and be careful with a genre. But I think you cannot really go wrong with an action or horror, especially if you're independent filmmaker.
I totally agree. In closing, can you tell us what else? Now you got 2 in post. What else is coming pre-production wise?
So that's Savage Attack. That's an action film, which will be kind of like my homage to Die Hard and The Raid, original The Raid. Nice. Yes. So that film was supposed to start in April, and I hope that I will have a lot of my fellow action stars to be in the film, and Joe Cornette will direct it again. And again, he's an amazing guy. And I think maybe one day when Night of the Caregiver is out, you will talk to him because he is the guy who will talk to you in good English, not broken English like mine. In good English, he will tell you everything about his inspirations and all these movies. But Savage Attack is the movie which we will shoot in April.
You're starring in it, right?
I'm starring in it, yes.
Wow.
So that should be a busy year because I have to finish 2 films, I have to shoot another one, and hopefully another Western. Because let me tell you that I fall in love with a Western genre, and I can't wait to make another Western.
Real quick, because me and John never talked about this. Give me a little bit about Assault on Rio Bravo, because I know only about the trailer.
Lance, I love Westerns. And of course, during our show, I already told you that I love action, I love horror, and I'm telling you, I love Westerns. But I do. I love movies in general, and that's all I do. I just watch movies when I have free time, when I don't have to make movies, when I don't have to train or do something like that. I watch movies. And actually, it's easier because I also represent Russia at the Golden Globes. I vote for the Golden Globes. And so I also have to watch all these dramas and all other stuff. But to answer your question, I love Westerns. I love original Westerns, Sergio Leone Westerns, with Clint Eastwood. With Charles Bronson, that was amazing film, right? Yeah, Once Upon a Time in the West. Look at that. It's amazing. So, of course, I love it. But I never, where's me? Big Russian guy, and where's Western, right? So, 2020, which we briefly mentioned with John a second ago, it changed all lives. I'm sure it changed your life, Lance. It changed John's life. It changed my life. 2020 changed everything. And it changed film business. It changed everything. So, of course, I didn't do anything in 2020. I just finished one of the films, Red Prophecies, which we produced before I had time to finish it and whatever. But I didn't know what to do next, what project to do next. And I was introduced to Joe Cornette, who already made 3 Westerns for Prime Video. And I watched one of them and another and the third one. And it was like great homages to those Westerns, original Westerns, which I watched before. I mean, with all that close-ups on eyes and guns and boots, you know, all the things which Leone did in his films. And when Joe started to talk to me about doing a Western together, I explained it to him that if he wants me, of course, I thanked him because he wanted to make a movie with me. And he liked Black Rose a lot. That's why he wanted to work with me. Yeah. But my point is, I was completely honest with him, and I told him, if we do something together, again, as I told in the beginning of our show, I told him we should think how we'll sell it, because just a Russian in a Western, I mean, no. So what we did Assault on Rio Bravo, which was written by Craig Hammond, and Craig Hammond is a great guy. I worked with him on Showdown in Manila, and actually he was the one who wrote very first Tarantino movie, My Best Friend's Birthday. And actually they shot it together, the Quentin. He was very close with Quentin Tarantino, and he actually has the same kind of sense of humor and style of writing as Quentin, in my opinion. And Craig is a great guy. So he wrote the script. And in that script, it was Western, but also it was an action film. And it based actually on a real story, Lance, because there was a guy, his name was Vladimir Turchaninov. There was a guy who immigrated from Russia to America in the middle of 19th century. He was a colonel of Imperial Guards in Russia. He immigrated to America. He joined Union Army during the war, and he became Brigadier General during the Civil War.
Okay.
So my character based on, and actually he disappeared after the war. So story in Assault on Rio Bravo take place like 10, 15 years after the Civil War. And it's
that's like where he would have been, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
that's cool.
yes, exactly. So basically, it's a story. I mean, it's a story. The story is simple. So there is a small town somewhere close to Rio Bravo, and there's a sheriff and his deputy and a really bad guy who is the leader of the gang, and they're just going through town. And sheriff needs a little break because they're going to San Antonio with a prisoner. They just need a little break. But right after them, there's all gang of these killers, ruthless killers. They're after them to get their leader free. And now, you know, in that small town, you know, basically you have now you have a classic action film because there's a lot of civilians and no one really to protect them. I mean, only sheriff, only like a marshal or a deputy, whatever, just a couple of people. And there's a guy. He owns a store. Yes, he's big. I mean, he's kind of well built, or whatever correct word in English. He has a store. So he doesn't even have a gun. He never carries a gun, right? And now you figure out that basically like John Wick, somewhere behind his table or whatever, now he has all these guns, and it will be him who will defend all these people because he's basically back. He didn't want to fight anymore, but he's back now. And Art Camacho, who was a stunt coordinator on many big movies, you know, and fight choreographer and director, he was responsible for all the action. So Joe Cornette directed the film, and Art Camacho was a fight choreographer. And that's why that's original Western, but also it's an action movie. And of course, I mean, in the end of the film, or like in the second half of the film, I don't even have a hat. I have kind of like that old style, Western style leather jacket, as you mentioned. We still can sell it also as an action film. And I'm talking about selling it because, again, for independent filmmakers, it's always important selling to the audience. So audience will like it. That's what I want to watch, because even in Sergio Leone films, which I really love, I always want Clint to have more gunfights, more action, more fights, more, you know. And actually, original Rio Bravo, if you remember, original amazing film with John Wayne, they don't have action. I mean, just in the end, they have that shootout in the end, you know, in original Rio Bravo. So Assault on Rio Bravo, action Western. And it's funny because originally we thought about adding some horror into that and make these bad guys, kind of like a cannibals or like extremely bad. We kind of lost that idea because I thought it would be too much. It would be too much, if it will be Western and a horror and an action. So that's Assault on Rio Bravo, I hope, will be for people who really love Westerns and really love action films.
Thank you.
But but Night of the Caregiver, that's for horror. Yeah, for horror fans.
I love it.
Alex,
Lance, watch it and let me know your opinion, because I think
Yes,
you, as an American and as a lover of original Westerns, I think you will find it interesting. Assault on Rio Bravo.
it looks,
Thank you.
I was on set a couple of days. I was the cook. I was cooking for people.
Yes, and actually John was amazing, and he's also in the trailer, and he was amazing in the movie. The only problem is, John, you always improvise and ask for whiskey. That's what was the
hard to
problem.
edit when I improvise for whiskey. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I was on set, and I just want to say that from what I saw, what I liked about Assault is that stylistically there is like an old school kind of Leone-ish feel, but there's also Commando. Fucking, leather jacket, shotgun, fucking everybody up. The Russian ain't playing. The Russian ain't playing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
So I'm pumped to see it. I'm pumped to see it, bro.
And I hope, John, you will join me on a set of Savage Attack.
You know where I live.
You will. I hope you will. I hope you promise me. I hope you will.
I will.